Okay, I think we're coming through on Zoom now. Well, yeah, thanks Hassan for that introduction. So my name is Robert Weiger. I'm a researcher at the University of Pennsylvania and a co-organizer of this conference. It's my pleasure to welcome you all here to the British Council in Egypt and to open this wonderful symposium. I don't want to take up too much of everyone's time because I'm sure you're much more interested in hearing what our esteemed keynote speaker, Campbell Price, has to say. But I do want to give a brief background and overview to this conference, to put it into its context, and to illustrate how it came to be, what you should expect from the next 3 days, and also why have this conference now. So many of you will have exchanged emails, I'm sure, with Amani who's really taken much of the responsibility for organizing this conference. I remember we were talking just over a year ago. As I'm sure many of you are aware, Amani has been involved with Abydos for many years in various capacities as an archivist, collections manager, excavator. And it was Amani's idea really to celebrate 125 years since Petrie's first excavations at Abydos. I agreed that a conference on the long history of archaeological work at Abydos would surely be an interesting topic, although I can't pretend to be any kind of an expert on the site myself. So we initially had in mind a small one-day conference with a sort of anticipated maximum attendance of maybe 30 people. That was sort of our aspiration, was to get 30 people over that one day. I, in particular, had not realized quite how evocative and important Abydos was in Egyptology's collective conscience. I hadn't grasped the strength of feeling people around the world have towards this site. When we started shopping the idea of a conference around people, it quickly became clear that we needed to expand our expectations. And I'm so glad that we did. The response to our call for papers was astounding, with scholars based in North America, Europe, Africa, and Asia all represented. We hope that this conference will do justice to the history of Abydos, to honor and reflect its past, and to help in some ways to shape its future. So why celebrate 125 years? Designating and commemorating any sort of anniversary requires a certain amount of subjective interpretation, making interpretive cuts to separate what is commemorated and what is not. In choosing to celebrate 125 years of excavations at Abydos, we've centered Flinders Petrie's work, which began in 1898 to 99. But of course, as many of you will know, Petrie was far from the first person to investigate the site of Abydos. We could go all the way back to the medieval Arab geographer Al-Maqdisi, who documented in his 10th century manuscript huge ancient stone buildings which were decorated with an unknown language at a place called Laliana. This was, of course, Abydos. In terms of excavations, several Europeans had dug at the site prior to Petrie's work in 1898. Notably, Douglas Mariette from 1858 to 61. And whilst he was a man of enviable energy and administrative flair, he was not a good excavator. Rarely on site in person, preferring the site's example of Cairo to the rural idyll of Al-Laliana, the erstwhile and much missed Professor David O'Connor, whose work is now synonymous with Abydos, commented that Mariette was, quote, often away from Abydos and his records, many unpublished, leave much to be desired, end quote. Another French archaeologist, Émile Avenue, subsequently excavated Abydos in 1895 to 98. His endeavors at Abydos were so poor that Petrie later bitterly commented that Avenou's excavations were little better than archaeological site routing. Petrie said of Avenou's work that it was, quote, a search in which whatever was not removed was deliberately and avowedly destroyed in order to enhance the intended profits of European speculators, end quote. The work of these early Egyptologists was destructive and extractive, and it's difficult to categorize it as archaeological work in nature, really. Within the historiography of Egyptian archaeology, it's Petrie's work which sets the standard for modern archaeological techniques. Indeed, in 1970, the aforementioned David O'Connor cited Petrie's work at Abydos in 1898 as, quote, the beginnings of scientifically controlled and recorded archaeology in Egypt, end quote. Whether or not we agree with this position, the work of Petrie at Abydos was hugely consequential for the site and for the archaeological work in Egypt as a whole. We, the organizers, took Petrie's excavations as an historical inflection point, a place from which the site changed rapidly, and a point to which much of the subsequent archaeological work at Abydos pivots. Now I come to the question of the University of Pennsylvania, the institution I represent, and the site of Abydos. The University of Pennsylvania, through funding from the Penn Museum, is sponsoring this conference here in Cairo. So why the University of Pennsylvania? Well, the university has had a relationship with the site of Abydos since 1898. The Penn Museum helped to finance Petrie's excavations and continued to support the work of Petrie's successors. David O'Connor, who I've mentioned a number of times already, was curator of the Egyptian section at the Penn Museum and initiated, in conjunction with Yale University, the Penn-Yale expedition to Abydos in 1967. And whilst that expedition ended in 1995, the Penn Museum archaeologists have been running excavations almost continuously since that time, now led by Joseph Wegner, one of David O'Connor's students. Penn Museum currently holds a significant collection of over 3,000 objects from Abydos. Those were acquired mostly during the early 20th century through Petrie's excavations, and also the first few seasons of the Penn-Yale expedition in the late 1960s. The Penn Museum, therefore, has a long history with the site of Abydos, dating back 125 years, and I'm very happy that the university was able to honor that connection by helping to sponsor this conference. So why now? The site of Abydos is an active archaeological site, with multiple Egyptian and foreign archaeological teams currently working there. Important new discoveries have been made in recent years, and I'm very happy that we will be hearing from archaeologists who are currently engaged in fieldwork projects during this conference. With that said, it's also important for us to reflect upon all the work which has been done to produce the archaeological site which we encounter today, and interrogate how this remarkable site has been shaped, conditioned, and in many ways produced. Archaeological sites are, of course, not natural landscapes. They're produced, managed, conserved, and sculpted through archaeological labor. We want this conference to be a space for thinking through the past, present, and future of Abydos. How was knowledge of the site produced? What has the site revealed to us about the nature of Egyptian kingship, power, and the state? What journey have material from the site made? And where are these objects currently located? How can the site be developed to the social and economic benefit of local communities? How is the contemporary archaeological site of Abydos experienced by those who visit? I'm really happy to say that we have sessions, papers, and roundtables over the next 3 days which seek to address these and many other questions relating to the past. Relating to the past, present, and future of Abydos. We have a wonderful mix of scholars gathered for this conference. Indeed, the organizing committee was blown away by the response to our call for papers, blown away by the breadth of scholarship, blown away by the diversity of voices, blown away by the enthusiasm to recognize and represent the amazing site of Abydos. We hope that you enjoy the next 3 days. Please try to engage as much as possible. We have topics to cover all interests, from the pre-dynastics in the New Kingdom, from conservation to sustainable development, from museum ethnography to critical epistemologies. There should be something for everyone. So I've come to the end of my time now, so I just want to say another big thank you to the organizing committee, to Amani in particular.